First off, mother sister standard. No, it's a hard no from me, dog. They no. Well, no. Nope. Hi everyone, welcome back to Find Me in a Book podcast. I'm so excited to do a new book that just came out by Miss Ruby Dixon. She is queen. If you loved the Ice Planet Barbarian books, which I don't know how many there are now, like over 20, you will love this book. I want to say, remember I did the episode on Ice Planet Barbarians and I was like, oh my gosh, except remember I also read like 10 of the books because they were so good and I was just like hooked and it was so great. My best friend Kat, she read like all 20 of them. She's like, I can't stop. And I was like, I get it. So this is the start of a new series by Miss Ruby Dixon. And I was hooked for this book. Hooked when I tell you. I did not want to stop reading. I really didn't. It was so good. And so this first part of the podcast slash video, I will be doing my review, talking a little bit about the book, what I felt, what I liked, what I didn't like, which honestly, spoiler alert, there wasn't anything that I didn't like. I'll just say that outright. Like, I really couldn't think of anything that I didn't like. So that's all spoiler for right now. But first little bit is the review, and then I will be going more into the story and the characters and kind of what occurs. I will try not to do any, like, plot spoilers. I will, like, for sure not do, like, the major ones. And so, like, don't worry about that. But there will be, actually... No, everything is pretty like said at the beginning. And so there's not going, I really won't tell you like a lot of plot twists, like if at all. So just trust me on that. I'm not going to reveal anything huge. I'm just simply going to do my review and then I'm going to be talking about everything that is in the book. Anyways, so I don't want to wait. I don't have any announcements. Actually, okay, announcements. There is going to be that giveaway, which is going to happen in the next couple of weeks because I reach my 3-year anniversary. So watch on Instagram because that's the only place that I'm going to be posting about it is on Instagram. And there's going to be a couple of requirements that you have to do to be able to enter. And it will have like what you will win, the timeline, everything like that. So watch for that. That will be in the next couple of weeks. But other than that, I have nothing because I'm like, oh, actually, I just remembered another thing. Lila Sage is coming out with her 3rd book of the Done and Dusted series. That's all, though. That's coming out next week. That's all the announcements. That's all I care about. Let's get into this book now that we've gone this far. Okay. First off, mother sister standard. No, it's a hard no from me, dog. No. Well, no. I keep thinking like, oh, maybe, but no. They couldn't even really like skip the spice. Okay, if there wasn't the spice at the level that it is, which 5 out of 5 spice level, I'm telling you, if there wasn't that, then they would like it. They would like the story, they would like the characters, they would like all of that. But because of the spice, they wouldn't like it. They wouldn't like it. I would highly recommend this, and I like freaking put it in all caps to my best friend. I said, you will listen to this. I didn't even give her a choice. I was like, you will listen to this. And she's like, okay, done. I will. And I was like, okay, good. She will absolutely love it because I freaking loved it. And like I said, 5 out of 5 spice. This might sound a little, I don't think it's crude, but it could be. I feel like Ruby Dixon was edging us as the reader because like at the beginning, she tells you what's going to happen in like the spice area, which we'll go through. But then it doesn't happen until like almost 3/4 of the way through. It's like a countdown to this like ceremony thing. And it was like, she was like edging us on with it. Like there was still spice throughout it. But there wasn't the actual like sex until that 3/4 part. You know what I'm saying? Which you probably don't because I haven't really explained very much. We will get into it. I promise. You can tell I'm just so excited and giddy to talk about this that I'm just all over the place. So this isn't a human-human. This is a monster-human romance. And the monster that we're going to be talking about, I feel like monster is so like a negative context, which it's not. This is a Tauren. So a Tauren is like a minotaur. I don't know a lot about this like breed or like species, but I want to say that a minotaur is like half man, half bull. But a Tauren, I want to say, is like all bull. So the one that we're going to be talking about, he's like all bull. He has hooves, but he has like regular hands. So he doesn't have like hooves on his hands, just on his feet. And I I have, you know, that I've read a Minotaur one, and I was a little like, oh, okay, because I don't know how to feel about monster romances still. I would say that I would rather read a monster romance than a reverse harem. Like, reverse harems are too much for me. Like, I just like the one person. You know, I'm a one person. So yeah, I kind of had to get over, I guess, that in my mind because I'm like, no, this is an individual. This is not an animal. Like I had to overcome that. And so if you love monster human romances, love that. I'm not yucking your yum. Absolutely not, because I loved this book. And I want to know more because I did actually enjoy the Minotaur book that that I did an episode on. I did enjoy it. I just had never read something like that before. And so I just have to slowly get into this. So if you have monster human recommendations, please put them in the comments. Go to my YouTube. This will be on YouTube. Put it in the comments there. And I want more recommendations because I want to get into this genre, you know, like. And this was perfect. I absolutely love this. It was really, really good. And let's get into that more. So this is a whole different world. Like with the Ice Planet Barbarians, it was kind of set on Earth at first, and then they were transported to this alien world, and the world was built from there. But this is like a whole different universe world. They don't even know about Earth, nothing like that. Like this is a whole different realm. And at times I was a little confused, but I feel like Ruby Dixon is such a good author that she just like, if you have questions, she answers them within like the next couple paragraphs. Like she builds her world so good and so like clean with detail that you understand pretty easy. But it's like, it's more, how do I say this? It's not a simple world. Like she builds like pretty complex worlds with these cultures and societies and rituals and these different races. And she just does it so flawlessly that you immediately are able to kind of digest what she's telling you. And it without like all the confusion, like, wait, what is this? What is this? Like, it's just done so well that you can't help but get sucked into this, you know? And of course, I absolutely did. And to go along with that, the storyline was perfect. The timeline, the pacing, the story plots, the twist, like everything I felt was timed so perfectly. At no moment, there was no moment, I guess I could say, that I was like, oh, this is taking a while, or oh, what? Like, I was not bored. Like, I was reading this in the Taco Bell line. Like, I was reading this at my lunch at work. Like, I was constantly reading this because it was such good pacing and I was so sucked in and I was just like, I have to keep reading. Like, that's how I know it's perfect. Like, the characters were so well rounded. I rooted for them. I love them. There's an aspect in here that's girl power, which I love that. I'm very much a girl's girl. Like I love girl power anything, and we'll get into that, of course. This is a dual point of view, so you get the female character and the male character's point of view, and I love that. I feel like it added to the story, it added to the background, because sometimes something would happen to the female character and then the male character would like come in at the very end, and then the next chapter would be his point of view leading up to that moment. And sometimes it would just be like progressing the story, like when it would go to his point of view. And I really enjoyed that. I really did. Like it added so much more depth to the story and made it like well-rounded, so you know exactly what was happening over here and over here. Like it just made you very aware of everything that was going on and the reactions and feelings. And it was so good. I absolutely loved it. So, a little bit like tropes, I guess you could say. There was some forbidden love, which it wasn't super emphasized on the forbidden love. Like, they're two different like classes of people, and it's like mentioned, and a little bit at the end, it's kind of like a topic, but there's nothing that ever like stops them absolutely. Like, there wasn't like a breakup because of like the status, there wasn't anything like that. So it was just like kind of minor. And then there was like a marriage of convenience, which we'll talk about, the monster human, of course. And there was a lot of like personal growth, which I don't think that's a trope at all, but that's one thing that I did like about the characters as well, is that each one of them, even like the side characters, like the background characters, even they had so much growth that you just like rooted for every single character. Like, even ones that like are bad, you're like, oh, I hope they have a redemption. Like, oh, I hope this. Like, you just root for all of them. Like, and nothing in this book made me angry. Like, one of the things that makes me the most angry in books is when there's like a jealousy factor, or like a perceived betrayal, like, oh, it looks like they cheated on me, but they really didn't. I hate that. I hate the feeling, and this did not have it. So also know that if you ever recommend me books, it cannot have that jealousy, like, it looks like they're cheating factor. It cannot have that. I cannot read something like that. It makes me too angry. And then I don't like to finish the story, or if I do, I just have a bad taste in my mouth. Like, I just can't do it. So that's another fun fact about me. But with this book, with the marriage of convenience, with the forbidden love, there is that chemistry. And Ruby does it so well. Like I said, she was kind of edging us, where they have this marriage of convenience, and it's like the sexual tension, the chemistry's building. You're just like there, and you're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Can they just be together? Like, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. I feel like I'm using this hand a lot. If you're watching the video, I'm like waving my left hand around. And that's another sign that I love a book, that I just like emphasize with my hand. So, and one of the cool things that I should have done from the very beginning when I started this podcast, but I've only just started doing it now, is that I like to read the author's notes when they are there, like after the book. I love to read that. Ruby Dixon had a great author's notes section. It says and like tells you how she came up with this idea, that she has these obsessions with like nonfiction, like documentaries and the Discovery Channel and things like that. And when she came up with this idea, she was obsessing over the Royal Geographical Society, which I didn't know what that was. So it is a club of sorts that during the Victorian era was devoted entirely to exploring and mapping the world as they saw it, which hence started this book, the Royal Artifactual Guild. And that's the new series name. And that's where everything comes about. So now is the point. You know all my thoughts and feelings about this book, like, the aspects, review type things. Now we're going to get into the story. And like I said earlier, I'm not going to reveal like the twists and like suspenseful type things. I'm not going to reveal that. But you will know like the history and like more about the characters and more about the plot. And at one point, like I usually tell like the beginning of the story and how we get to where they are and all that. And then I usually like say general broad terms as we go through it, like they fall in love, blah, 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 and then go from there. So if you've never listened to an episode, that's kind of the outline that I usually do. And also welcome. If this is your first time watching as well, welcome. I hope you've stuck with me this long because we are going to dive deeper into this book, and it's well worth it. And I highly recommend that you pick it up because it's so good. So if you turn off right now and you want to know my overall rating, 10 out of 10. Really, like this is on I want to say my top 10 or my top 10 favorite books of the year. I don't think of all time, but of the year, absolutely. And we're in October. There's been a lot of books that I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this, but this was up there. So now you know, 10 out of 10 for me, and on my top 10 list for the year. Take that as you will. I hope you still continue to listen, but if you don't, thank you so much. Follow, subscribe, everything. Let's get into it now, everyone. So excited to talk about this book more, and some history that Ruby does give us at the beginning. So there once was a large ancient city called Priel, and Priel was full of magic. It was, just imagine kind of like Atlantis. It kind of sounded like that, and full of magic, which was really cool. And the gods of this city grew angry with the people of Priel. I think it's Priel. And they basically had it swallowed by the ground, where it was forgotten for years. So like Atlantis, but this one went into the ground. I think Atlantis was like swept away by the sea. I don't really know a lot. I just know off the Disney movie, which it kind of sunk down as well. Did you like that hand movement? So hundreds of years. And then there, about 300 years ago from when our main characters are, there was a war called the Mancer War, which is a Mancer is kind of like a magic person, a magic user. And so it ended, I don't know the timeline of when it started and when it ended, but at that point, the magic was outlawed and a new industry was started, which is the artifact retrieval. And Vastwarren City grew from, or basically atop the bones of this old city, Priel. So that's where we are at this point. We have Priel, that 300 years ago, it was buried. And now we have a city on top of it that there are these guilds, or the Guild of Artifacts. They have these teams that they create to go down into these tunnels and dig for artifacts, because artifacts is power and they usually have magic in them. And so that is like, these artifacts are the wealth of this society. We meet Aspeth. Aspeth? Interesting name. So she is our main female character. She is a holder's daughter, which a holder is basically like the nobles in like England, like they're the ones that own the land. They're the ones that have the most artifacts, because artifacts is power. And so that people can't take over their land. They are like the governors of their people. They are the most influential, like they are right under the king. So she is a holder's daughter, and she doesn't want people to know that her dad, like her father, basically gambled all of their artifacts away. And she has heard rumors that a couple of the other holders are going to declare war on her father, and they'll lose the whole land. And this is like one of the oldest like keeps, like castles in a long time, like everywhere. And so they are one of the oldest families and just very powerful. So she's like, I have to do something to help my family, where it's just her and her dad. Her mom died when she was younger. And even then he's always away, like gambling, stuff like that. So she's basically had to raise herself. And so she got interested in these guild books and artifacts books and old Priel books. Like she is so into it, like, and knows a lot about it. And so she's always wanted to be in this guild. She always wanted to find artifacts. Like this is what she wanted. And so when this situation happened, her father wanted her to marry this guy, Barnabas. I love that name. I really don't, but Barnabas. And Aspeth actually overheard him. She thought that he actually had feelings for her and they were going to get married. And she overheard him saying really mean things. And so she's like, nope, this is the perfect time. I'm going to go to the city and I am going to find artifacts, or I'm going to join the guild. And then I'm going to find artifacts so that I can help my father and keep our land and everything like that. So she has this maid, lady's maid, best friend, basically. Her name is Gwenna. So she's going with her as well to join this guild. And they get there and there's a thing called Actually, hold on. The Royal Artifactual Guild meets once a year on the eve of Swan's Day. So they say a prayer to the gods to honor the king for his benevolence and to update any rules on the guild itself. And this is also where like artificiers, I think they call them, are officially promoted, and artifacts are haggled over by holders, and those who wish to join the guild can pledge to a teacher who will do their best to prepare their fledgling. One of these leaders or like teachers, her name is Magpie. So she of course is a woman. She's like the only woman in this guild, and so she's made a name for herself, and Aspeth has just like always looked up to her. And so she's like, I want to be on that team. I want to do this. One thing, I know that's a strange name, Magpie, but one of the things about the guild is that you are a fledgling for a year until you like pass these tests and everything. And then if you pass and are officially a guild member, you get a bird name. I think the original explorers or the original artifact people, his last name was Bird or something having to do with a bird. Now, when you enter into the guild, you get a bird name. And so that's why her name is Magpie. So these two girls get up to the office or the hold or the headquarters, I guess you could say. They are kind of just laughed at because they're the only two girls and it's a men's sport. It's a men's world there. They are like, no, I really want to do this. Like, how can I do this? And so they're just kind of, yeah, they're just laughed at. And so they're like, we have to find a way. And so they go to this tavern just to kind of like, you know, sulk a little bit. And they meet Magpie's niece, and her name is Lark. And Lark is like, hey, yeah, my aunt owed me a favor, or like my mom a favor. And so now I'm in her team and I can get you guys on there. Like, we just had a guy leave. Like, yeah, that would be so cool. And they're like, great, that sounds really great. And so the next day they go to meet with with her teacher, which should be Magpie, but she actually is a drunk, and she has been for a couple years and just has kind of like shirked off everything. So she has this assistant called Hawk, and he's the Tauren. And he has been there since he was 12. I don't know how old he is now, actually. It didn't say. But actually, I think he's in his 30s. But he was taken in by the guild by Magpie a while ago, and so he's always been her assistant. And he's basically teaching now because she hasn't done anything the past couple years, and she's just been a drunk. And so he's basically been teaching, and he's like, no, absolutely not. Like, we can't do this. Plus, I'm going to be leaving in a couple weeks because we have this ceremony of the Taurens, which is the Conquest Moon. And he's in this predicament because during the Conquest Moon, their lives become about sex, like constant sex. And it only happens every 5 years, this Conquest Moon. And so he's like, do I stay in the city and find like a sex worker, or do I go back to my village and find someone there? And he didn't really like either option. And so somehow he like tells her this, and because she's like, well, it's a Conquest Moon. And so later on, because he had told her, and a couple of the other guild members had told her that she needs a chaperone because she is a woman. And so then she gets the idea like, oh, a marriage of convenience. Like, I will go through the Conquest Moon with you, and you can be my chaperone so that I can like prove that I'm worthy and become a guild member. And he's like, okay, like fighting a little bit. And then they agree to do that. So they're married like the day after, because they have to basically show that they're in love, or like they have to prove to the guild that they got married. Then she becomes an official fledgling. And it's really cool because there is Aspeth, and then there's Gwenna. And these groups, these guild groups, these fledgling groups, I guess you could say, they're always 5. Like, it is in their customs, or it is it's just always been done, like tradition, that you always have 5 members. And so there's Aspeth, there's Gwenna, there's Lark, who is Magpie's niece, and then there is Marin, She is a priestess. Like her family sent her to this nunnery, this convent, and it was really awful. So she escaped, and she's like, I want to be a guild member. She actually escaped, I think, to like a traveling troupe. Like she was like juggling or something like that. And she wanted to join, so she was able to do that. And then there is Kip, which Kip is a slither skin, which is basically, I think, a humanoid lizard. And he like carries this shell on his back, which is his house. So it kind of sounds like a turtle. But I was kind of confused with some things. And you just love him. He doesn't talk at all, but just how they like embrace him is just, I loved it. And that's where the girl power comes in. That they have Magpie actually kind of gets her crap together for a little bit and does start teaching them. And then Hawk has also been like teaching them, but also like he's married to Aspeth. And so he's like, hey, what experience do you have? And she's like, oh, I'm a virgin. Like, I don't have any experience. And so, of course, that's when it gets spicy because he's like, oh, let me teach you. Like, let me get you ready for this. Because, yeah, it's a couple days worth of just constant sex. These Taurens have, like, it only happens every 5 years, and they also have a knot which appears every 5 years on them as well. And they just, it's like constant. It's like his eyes go red and they just are like not there. It's just like a rage. And so it's basically a countdown to that ceremony or that moon. And so that's why I'm saying that it kind of edges you a bit because you're like, I know that they're going to do this, but there still is like 20 days left until this moon. And so just how they come together as a couple. And of course it doesn't become convenience anymore. And also how a team, because they have to learn how to go down into the tunnels and how to be a team and how to find artifacts. And it's just perfect because they all become friends. And Aspeth has never really had friends. Like she has Gwenna, which she's always had, but she has gained these friends. And then she also gained a friend in Hawk, like her new husband. And it's just so good. And then there's, like some twists, and it's just always exciting. And it always had my attention. And like, it was just so good. Like the characters, I was just like, feeling for them. And of course it's spicy because like he has a freaking cow tongue, so imagine why I'm saying that. Like that sounds pretty nice. So there is that. And spicy. And then the moon comes and we experience that. And then they just like fall in love and it's perfect. And then also her father comes into play. And that's where kind of like the different statuses happen because like, of course, Hawk finds out who she is. And then, there's that kind of like storyline. But it all works out and it's perfect. And I just highly recommend. You could tell like I did enjoy it. I talked with my left hand the whole time. It was so good. It was so good. So anyways, thank you for joining me on this longer episode. I haven't done this long of an episode in a while. But thank you for joining me. This book, I highly recommend to pick up. It's perfect. It's wonderful. 5 out of 5 spice, 5 out of 5 love, just all around good things. So if you love this content, definitely follow and subscribe. And I would love if you put more Monster Human recommendations in my comments because I want to read more. I am telling you, I want to read more. I will talk to you guys next week and we will go from there. I've been reading the new Devney Perry Devney Perry, I think that's her name. Perry? Yeah. Her cowboy books. Okay. I'm loving it. I read the first one so fast. And I'll be doing an episode on it next week. So stay tuned for that. But I am grateful for you guys, and I'll see you next week.